What sets the Purina goat mineral and the Purina wind and rain sheep mineral apart from other minerals that are on the market is because they are designed by folks that are in the business. We work very hard at the Purina Animal Nutrition Center in Gray Summit, Missouri to maximize efficiency, to increase the number of lambs that we have on the ground, and I know the goat herds that we work with are on the same role as us. The best way for producers to ensure that they don't have a mineral deficiency is to supply a quality mineral. That's where we have worked so diligently on the Purina goat mineral and also the wind and rain sheep mineral to provide myself and other producers an opportunity to decrease problems. From the reproductive standpoint, vitamins and minerals play a huge role in sheep and goat. That's where we have found the biggest contribution to our operation in terms of AI and embryo and then conception on first-time service. So there's a distinct role that the minerals play in repro for us. That's what makes us unique and different, is because we're creating products that work for us.
Contact John Starnes, your Pride Ag Resources LPS and Purina Animal Nutrition Specialist at cell phone 620-518-2370 or at jstarnes@landolakes.com. You can also contact Shelly Hamilton, who's a feed sales specialist with Pride Ag Resources, at our cell 620-393-5872, and that's at shamilton@prideag.com. Contact them for your goat and sheep feed needs.
Stay Tough Superior Fencing Products presents its fence test video. During this video, you'll witness the strength and resilience of a Stay Tough fixed knot fence compared to a standard hinge joint fence, as both are hit by a full-size truck. Stay Tough fence is made of high tensile wire that's 3 times stronger than low tensile wire and will stretch less than 1%. Low tensile wire will stretch more than 10%. Both fences were installed under identical circumstances and using the same tooling and fence design. Let's see the results. Stay Tough Fence comes with a 10-year written limited warranty. Contact us at 1-888-223-8322 or visit our website to find a dealer near you. Stay Tough Superior Fencing Products. Stay strong, stay tight, stay tough.
Getting up on a morning like this and seeing the sun come up is just beautiful. I was herding sheep when I was 12 years old. I had a pack horse and a teepee tent and a stove, and I followed the sheep, and I loved it. In fact, if I had my druthers, I would be out here herding the sheep every day. I don't think there's any better life. We want to be in business for the next generation. We're feeding the world, we're clothing the world, and to us, that's a pretty noble profession.
200.
Makes me feel good that our kids want to raise their kids like they were raised. Makes me and my wife feel like that we must have done something right. My name is Stephen Osgathorpe, and I'm just an old sheep herder.
Making Kansas a better place to live and work has been our goal for over 100 years. It's a responsibility we don't take lightly.
It's all with your sediment.
365 meters.
365 meters.
K-State Research and Extension serves our rural and urban neighbors by helping you adapt to new technologies, protect our environment, improve nutrition and food safety, and grow the next generation of leaders.
And my world. And my world.
We help farmers and ranchers adopt new tools that improve profitability in a rapidly changing marketplace.
That went into it, going to help some people.
We prepare and inspire leaders to take on challenges with confidence, be responsible, and give back.
Thank you very much. It will be a great help.
I think K-State Extension is a marvelous partner.
We bring people together to complement each other's unique strengths and make communities more vibrant and successful. We are Kansas State University, in every county, working shoulder to shoulder with organizations, local leaders, and you to help our state grow and thrive. We are K-State Research and Extension.
For discussion or so, 10, 20 minutes maybe, and then we'll finish up with Dr. Drew at the end. So if you guys want to just tell a little bit maybe about your operation, and I'm going to turn the camera around so you guys will be on camera so the people out there can see you. Introduce yourself and tell a little bit about what you're doing. And hold the mic fairly close. The one's online. Yeah.
I'm Greg Greason. I've got a little bit of goat experience. So if you got any questions about goats, I guess you might ask away if you got any. I don't know if I can answer them, but I'll try.
Okay, Ron Gibson. Like I said, we're down there south of Copeland, and I'm actually a crop farmer. I mean, my dad started our farm, and we beat our heads up against well irrigating with ditch and pipe and now sprinklers. But and I worked for him to begin with, but I always need a little more money for some reason, gas money to pick up for just for that. And so we do sheep, and about come home from K-State in about 1984. We started messing with sheep then, and just gradually built up a flock. We started with 125 ewes, I think, and basically Rambouillet, Gargny types. Now we're just a little bit under 1,000 ewes, and got completely different sheep than we started with, completely different. But we just kind of adjusted to the times and continue to figure out ways to increase production and lower costs. That's the two things that's just really important about raising sheep.
Gary Jorgensen, and we live southwest of Greensburg, southeast of Mullenville. We've had sheep for a long time. The only when I grew up, up in Wisconsin, I thought sheep, there were no sheep there. I didn't know anything about sheep. I thought they were why would you grow sheep? I mean, up in Wisconsin, everything is dairy. Then I went to college and I met this blonde girl, and she was taking care of a sheep for a project at college for animal science, animal field. And that was my wife, Gail, and we're still together. Now we have sheep, but we've had sheep for a long time. And we raise Dorset sheep for mainly meat. And now we've got some Shropshire sheep. And Shropshire's been in my wife's family for generations. And so a few years ago, we were able to get some of the heritage breeds, some of the older traditional type. And we like those because I guess nostalgia for one thing, but the meat capacity on these Shropshires and the wool is a little bit better quality. Now, wool is not why we're growing sheep, because wool right now is about worthless. And when Mid-States Wool closed in Hutchinson a few years ago, that hurt, and now they closed their main warehouse in Ohio, I guess this month also. So the wool market is pretty bleak right now. So anybody going into sheep or has sheep that are hair sheep or the composites, I don't know from that standpoint, but if you have sheep that have fine wool values are staying up there. But we have total with lambs, we have fall lambs, the Dorset's lamb mainly in the fall and October, and then any Dorsets that don't lamb, then we have them come in with the Shropshires in March. So in a couple of weeks we'll start lambing again, and so that's we'll have about 50 ewes total right now, 50 or 60 ewes. And a year ago the lamb market was so good, it's like we couldn't make a mistake when you marketed lambs. So now you got to wonder, well, where do we go with this right now? But a lot of our lambs get sold in breeding stock. Rams pretty much move off the place as stud rams, breeding rams, and then we always seem to have a market for our new lambs here as well.
So anybody have any questions that you want to ask them? If you guys can repeat the questions.
We're asking to hold the mic closer.
Online people are saying, hold the mic a little closer.
What are you seeing for beef prices unfold right now? Okay, so replacement ewe prices, ewe lambs, a month old, so more likely they're still on their mothers right now, but at that point, I know there's contracts out there with guys that are selling replacement females that are at 60 days old. They're still probably could be worth $250 a head. Those are some commitments that were made even a year or two ago, and so open market. I don't know if we could. That would be at $3 a pound get an offer. But that breeding market is a little bit different. Until it gets saturated, it'll probably stay up pretty good. These guys might have to think on that.
I don't know that we have an opinion of it. A lot of times on this breeding news, we have a person that's right now in Northeast Kansas that wants some Shropshire yearly ewes. And if you take them to be a year, you kind of like to keep them after that point and keep building up the flock. So it's like, well, what are they worth to us versus what are they worth on the open market? I was telling somebody this morning that there was a nice sized lot of fine wool sheep that was for sale about a month ago. I don't know if they're still available, but I talked to this individual, not that we could handle or anything, but just as a resource. He had a little over 1,000 head of, I think it was merino ewes, bred to black-faced rams, and they were ran in April. He would let the whole 1,050 head go. I think, if I remember right, it was $250 a head. He loves sheep. He doesn't want to let them go, but his main issue is predators. And he's got a hired man that had a broken leg, and he used to have a herder out of Peru. And he said he was probably the only one in the state of Nebraska that had a flock big enough to have a approved predator with his flock. And so he didn't get the visa renewed, so he couldn't come back. And with the predator problem, he said, I have to sell it. He didn't want to, but I think if there was an opportunity for somebody to get into sheep with fine wool. Now, fine wool is going to be worth something. And that would be an opportunity because you'd be landing in 2 months. And that would be the way to go to get started. But if that helps answer your question, but typically, you know, a month old lambs, we don't sell them at a month old. We wouldn't sell them until well after weaning, until not established and growing up.
Okay, Ron, and now there's Chris behind you. How do you
market your lambs? I'm hearing relatively the same value for lightweight and heavyweight lambs without the feed cost at Clay Center, Kansas.
So that is, it's not a tricky question, but right now lambs are bringing more at a lighter weight than they are at 140 and minus the feed costs. So, but the reason we are still in that traditional marketing is that we have a contract with Superior Farms. And so we're obligated to deliver, and we want to deliver because they have helped us out and we couldn't get a good price at an auction. So the marketing deal is tricky. I mean, you're in a contract, you're locked into their price, or you stay what I call open marketing, where you take advantage or disadvantage opportunities. Because you have many chances. You have a chance to market that lamb at weaning time. You have a chance to probably market at 100, 110. And then you have a chance to market, if you got the right genetics, at 145 to 155. So at some point there, and with feed so expensive now, if you're not locked into somebody, I would be selling those lambs lighter, just to try to cut some feed costs. You got to look back at too how this all works. You've got a ewe that, you know, you got opportunity call, you have cost in that ewe, and the more lambs you have for that ewe at any given weight, dictates profit. So an 80-pound lamb, if it brings $3 a pound, it's $2.40. If you have 2 of those, that doubles that, spreads out the cost for the ewe over the whole year. But there's differences in, you know, the cost of what, you know, low input systems versus high input systems. But no, it's not paying to put on that extra weight. And I think that'll answer that question, because it's costing a $9 corn or $8, whatever your basis is, it's costing a lot of money to put a pound of game on right now.
Along those lines, where do you market those lighter lambs? Are you just looking at auction market or?
So that's basically going to be it. Direct marketing. There's places like in South Texas, Capra Foods is one. They do a Dorper program to where those lambs they have to be at least 50% Dorper. They're going to be working with 110 to 100, an 80 to 110 20-pound lamb. And then otherwise, the ethnic market, most of those lambs are going East Coast, and your local auction barns, namely Clay Center, Kansas, is very stable, I would call it. I have a good friend up there that markets all his lambs through Clay Center, and they're extremely stable there. And those owners of that auction do a great job of you know, bringing in the buyers and trying to bring in to keep their price as high as they can. So that's the ethnic is a completely different situation than where we sell in Colorado. But not saying you can't use some of the same breeds. You would just use different terminal sires to. They still have the same females, And depending on what market you thought you were gonna try to hit, you could use different sires to accomplish that.
When you say ethnic, you're talking about, back when we had sheep, all of a sudden somebody would come up from the east and they wanted a bunch of sacrifice lambs for Passover. So they wanted about 30 pounds. And they'd pay about as much for a 30-pound lamb as a fat lamb. That's when you're talking about.
Yeah, that's right. That's kind of what we label as ethnic market. It's a specific market at a specific time. I mean, he kind of showed that on, and so did Carissa, on what times of the year. And those things can last several weeks or months, or they could be here and gone tomorrow. And it's really pretty hard sometimes to build a business plan on that type of market, I guess you should say. But yeah, that's it. That, and typically it's that smaller land that they're willing to pay a lot of money for.
I got a silly question for you all up there. You've been doing it for quite some time, and I think it's kind of obvious a bit of nuance or a new lead to this whole thing. You guys have any recommendations for somebody starting up, first getting into it?
Go ahead, start. And I've got something to say, and I'm sure Gary will too.
Just make sure that's what you and your family want to do. Because if you're paying yourself for the labor, you're not gonna get nowhere. I mean, it's gotta be, everybody's gotta be involved, and I believe that to make it work. For you being young and fixing to get married, I think you need to get everybody involved. To be successful in whatever species that you want to try to grow or all of them.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've been fortunate enough to be able to start hiring some help to help us with sheep, and you either want to do it or you don't, and if you don't, you will never be successful at it. And it's hard to find people. This livestock deal is about people and your passion. You're either passionate about it or you're not. And a few things and we talked about this a little earlier, and people have heard me say this a lot. There's more differences within a breed than there are between breeds, because you'll have an individual in your flock that will be extremely productive and profitable, but everybody's got some of the stuff on the bottom end that is losing you money. And so record keeping, pick your breed, pick the breeds that will complement your resources. And by that means, do you have a grass, or do you have facilities, or do you have, labor, and go slow. I've seen so many people fail by just getting in with both feet, and then, here I am now. What do I do? And the bigger you get, the bigger your problems are. And just like I said earlier, every lambing season, I still 40 some years experience, I get a knot in my gut. When I bring these in off pasture and get ready till we start getting those good live babies coming, then I say, okay, we're there, and it was successful. So start small and talk with other producers. Be careful on how much money you spend on feed. As far as Dwayne talked a little bit about I call them, and my mentor Clifford Spaeth always called them convenience feeds, protein tubs, blocks. Those have a place, but be careful with those. You can see that those feeds are really expensive. So and just be careful with equipment. You're trading labor for equipment in this, because sheep is intensive. But to get larger, you have to either hire labor or bring in equipment. Typically, it's been cheaper to bring in a little bit of equipment than to try to hire more labor to do tours, basically, and work with a veterinarian. If you feel like if you feel like you have a problem, don't be afraid to ask somebody, because I haven't met a sheep person ever that wouldn't share their experiences with another person. That's a pretty good bunch of people.
along that same line, if you, I'll agree with Ron on that. If you're starting out and you don't have experience, start with a few head or talk with people such as Ron, who's been a great mentor in his area to help other people get started. And find someone that you can, several people that you can talk to, get advice from. We go into this, I don't know what to do. What's gonna happen? When is she gonna land? How do I get her bred? How do I feed? There's a lot of questions. But try and connect with somebody that's got experience that'll help you out, coach you up in that area. I know we've gone the route with our drop troops now to be NSIP, which is National Sheep Improvement Program, because it's one thing, and the same thing is in the cattle industry. They have EBVs and they use that a lot to determine the value, the worth, the productivity of a sire and so on. And we can look at a particular ram and think, boy, that's a good ram. He's growing fast. But then when you get the numbers and you think, there's something not quite right here, that should help you in determining, do you keep that for a stud ram? Do we sell them as a stud ram, or do we just call it, get rid of the market as just meat? So to us, it's important that we have some EBVs that we can make some assessments on too. So that's another thing to talk to people about. Also want to mention the National Lamb Feeders Association puts on a yearly school, and I've been to, I think, 4 of them in the past, and it's been up in, I've been to Denver area, Columbus, Ohio, I forget, there's been 4 different places. This year they're doing one in Columbus, Ohio, and to me that was the best one. And if you need some, if you have some time that you can get away for about 3 days, apply to the National Lamb Feeders for their Howard Wyman lamb school, sheep school. And they will take you through everything from buying a lamb at an auction yard, for example, and then you'll be on a team and you take that lamb through all the way to slaughter, hanging on the rail, cutting it up into retail cuts. And did you make the right decision buying that lamb and selling it at the retail market, and just on, breeding and feeding and management. But the National Lamb Feeders has this Howard Wyman sheep school that is excellent. And if you're thinking you want some professional advice and can get away for 3 days, I would say apply for that. It is, they'll take in probably 30 people or more. And it's a wonderful school, absolutely wonderful. And I think it's probably in July or something like that this year in Columbus, Ohio.
Any other questions?
Economically, is accelerated lambing worth it?
So how many in here have experience with accelerated lambing? I guess how many in here have experience with accelerated lambing? So of course, I'm a corn farmer, remember? So we were after 400 bushel corn all the time, but accelerated lambing is tough. It's tough. It's harder. It's harder on the ewes. It takes more feed. It's labor intensive. It takes away from family time because it's continuous. It's just like milking cows. And there's still some successful systems around, but this 3-star, 5-star lambing system started in the 60s, and where are we still at as an industry? We lamb once a year. If it were me again and we still accelerate some, we don't hit every season. I would concentrate on getting a set of genetics that lamb year round, and then you pick the months, the time periods that's most productive for you. And what'll dictate that is, when do you have your feed? How much facility do you have? When do you have your labor? If you're farming, you've got labor, you're tied up in certain months, and other months you're a little bit slow. Or maybe in you guys' case, you will want to lamb a little different time than your calving. So get genetics that will lamb anytime you put a ram with them, and then pick those and start once a year lambing, and then when you really figure out you got that figured out, well then there's plenty of information out there on accelerating how to do it. But it's a challenge. I had a good friend of mine, and Bob's retired now, but I tried to quit, and mostly a push from my wife, because the number one rule in having sheep is never owning more than your wife can take care of. So Jacqueline was always trying to, let's just quit lambing so much. We're lambing every 4 months basically, because you got overlap, you got fallback, you got ewes that don't, you're lambing every 4 months. And it burns you out. And then every time I tried to say, Bob, we're gonna go back. He said, well, if you're gonna go back to just lamb once a year, just go get out of business. Anybody knows Bob, you can understand the humor in that. But so we'd stay in a little longer, and then he ended up retiring before I did. But Bob accelerated lamb most of his life. Ever since the concept come on, he did it. I don't say he always did it real well, but he always did it. And yeah, it start with the once a year, get the genetics that will what I call they have a short, extremely long ester cycle and they're still about 2 months out of the year, which is going to be March and April, that even the best of ewes won't breed. But pick your genetics carefully and then figure out what might work. And there's differences in production level between ewes that fall lamb and the ones that lamb in winter time. But match it with the system and the labor and the resources that you have.
And I'd add to it, make sure you keep records. You need a higher level of records to do accelerated, because you don't want that ewe going full year through 3 lambing periods not having a lamb. I mean, that can sneak by you pretty quick if you're not keeping good records.
One thing Ron likes to say is that we got to use our facilities. I mean, like, it doesn't pay to have 400 ewes and have to have a barn big enough to land them all at once. You might have a barn big enough for 200 and land half of them in the fall, half of them in February.
Yeah, that facility cost is if, and the guy that showed the goat budgets, he didn't have 2 things in there. He didn't have any labor, and he didn't have any facility costs, and he didn't have any depreciation in any of those costs. These days guys are big, because you know what it costs to build anything these days. So in the sheep world, I said, and anybody comes to me and said, well, I'm going to get the sheep. First thing I said, well, what do you have? What do you have already there? You got a 30 by 40 or a 20 by 60, or what do you have that you can use? And then let's start with that. And then if you get in and you say, yeah, I'm going to stay in the sheep business, and then you can start, adding to that. We started in a 14 by 50, maybe. We run an 800 ewes through a 14 foot by 60 foot building. And we were just lambing in fall and spent a lot of time in the pickup at nights, picking up half frozen lambs and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, and I've seen some pretty elaborate facilities built, and as long as they use them smart, they make it. Otherwise, they're sitting there, or somebody else owns them after that. So.